Okay, if you guys are now watching this, how you doing, everybody? It's your boy Wardy, and we are back at it with our latest New York Metropolitan news and rumor discussion, as the Metsies, at the time of recording this over the past couple hours here, have been connected to a veteran right-hander from the LA Angels as a potential bullpen fit, as they have been nipping out the heels and certainly talking to a lot of different teams and their bullpen relief options. And we have here, yes, David Stearns wants a shot at Luis Garcia. The former San Diego Padres having himself a very sharp year with the LA Angels in 42.2 innings, a 3.8 ERA, a 3.78 expected ERA, which tells you that pretty much the expected numbers, the advanced numbers, are very much in line with his baseline numbers, which I like. So you know what you're getting, basically. He's not having a lot of luck on his side or a lot of bad luck. He is as advertised. A 3.68 FIP, a 1.2 WHIP, just around an 8.5 K per nine, a little under, to a 2.95 walks per nine. So roughly a 3 walks per nine. Respectable K to walk ratio, not the sexiest by any stretch, but still definitely serviceable. And for a Mets team that can use as many high leverage options in this bullpen as possible, this is how you help make that happen for the guy who's currently the setup man there for the LA Angels and has been plenty this season. And when we take a further deep dive a bit about Garcia, as you guys see from his highlights, just nastiness that we saw there with that sweeper, just a thing of beauty. And we're going to talk about him more as we take a look at his numbers here through Baseball Savant here in a second, everybody. But I want to know your initial reactions to the Mets being connected to Luis Garcia. If you're wondering where this came from, John Heyman is the one who initially reported it earlier today at the time of recording this one, folks. And I want to know how you feel about the prospect of the Mets landing this veteran right-hander. Again, a guy that has plenty to give, an electric arsenal for sure, has been up and down in his production this season, but has a kitchen sink of an arsenal of 6 to 7 pitches he can throw at you and have success in doing so. And expand a little bit more here on Luis Garcia. Last season with the San Diego Padres, a 4 ERA, a 4 expected ERA, the same numbers there, where he looked at just under an 8 K per nine, a 3.6 walks per nine, roughly 60 innings pitched last season in his final year with the Padres. But in 2022, where himself and the rest of the Padres took down our Mets in the wild card, sadly, we did see that, yes, in 61 innings, a 10 K per nine, a 2.5 walks per nine, a 3.39 ERA, a 2.83 expected ERA, strong numbers in 2022, and again, throughout his career, right around a 4 ERA pitcher who's been the bigs for right around a decade, since 2013, when he was with the Phillies, from 2013 all the way to 2018, which means that I actually remember Luis Garcia. It's been a minute now. I remember him more with the Padres because that's more recency bias, but yes, he did have a stint there with the Phillies to kick off his career for the first 5 or so years. That's an interesting one. But let's get into a bit here on the numbers and what Luis Garcia can provide to the Mets here. Because as we take a look at the Savant numbers, I'll tell you right now, they're not the prettiest thing that you're going to find. However, there is upside here for sure. Let's get into all the pros and potential cons, if anything, with the veteran right-hander here. And yes, Luis Garcia. All right, everybody, as you guys can see here, when we take a look at the Savant numbers, 38th percentile in pitching run value, 42nd percentile in fastball run value, 25th percentile in breaking run value, and 22nd in off-speed run value. Just above average on the expected ERA at 3.78, just around league average at expected batting average at 244. Fastball velocity, 86th percentile, because he averages 96, 97 on the gun. Tops out there, 99 a hundo. So we love the velo there. Even for a veteran at 37 years of age, Luis Garcia is still consistently throwing gas. He does, however, give up some hard exit velocity because of this, especially when he gets barreled. Average exit velocity is 24th percentile, roughly 90 miles per hour there. Chase percentage we see at 78 miles per hour. Whip percentage right around league average, 48. K percentage right around league average, 49. Walk percentage right around league average there at 52, and barrel percentage we have well above league average at 68 percentile, and hard hit percentage 20th percentile, so that goes in hand with the average exit velocity that I just mentioned. When he gets hit hard, that we notice. Ground ball percentage 85th percentile, fantastic job, and great extension too at 75th. So what you're getting here in Luis Garcia is clearly a guy that induces those ground balls at a fantastic rate. Not a huge strikeout pitcher, has the velocity, uses it to, of course, help play up his pitches, whether he's going to use his velo as a put-out pitch or help set up for that disastrously sweeper that has so much horizontal movement. Doing my best Isaac Rothman impression. Shout out to you, Isaac. And speaking of Isaac, let's get into a little bit more here on the numbers, because again, he throws absolute gas. like Ryan Stanek, who the Mets just acquired, for example, and would be a formidable, a reliable option versus what the Mets currently have of their current group. Essentially, what you're getting here in a Luis Garcia is a more guaranteed option versus a Reed Garrett. You know, as good as Reed Garrett has been this season, Reed Garrett is a guy that it would not shock me in the slightest if he's not in the Mets bullpen come down the stretch into playoff time should the Mets break be in the mix of things still. Why is that? Because Garrett, we got to see how long it takes him to get back from injury. Same thing with Sean Reed-Foley. And these guys, while they have been performing well this year, SRF, how can he handle a big sample size consistently? That's a big one with his ailments. Reed Garrett, we saw him go down because he was throwing so much in such a short period of time. Let these guys rest up, but also let these veterans that have been there, done that are more reliable options be in this bullpen, because I want as much sure guaranteed certainties as possible. And when you enter a guy like Luis Garcia, he's absolutely more of a guarantee than what the Mets currently have here. And to break down some numbers here, and shout out to my man Jacob, my amazing editor in the chat, happy to have you in here. He says, I personally think if you're gonna go get a reliever, go as big as you can. I would say go after one of the Rogers twins, Pete Fairbanks and Tanner Scott. Well, Fairbanks is going to be a New York Yankee in the coming minutes based on the latest reports, so that's unfortunate. Tanner Scott's going to cost quite a bit for a rental reliever, but I love the idea of acquiring the flame-throwing southpaw. That would be huge in this Mets bullpen. I can see why Stearns wouldn't want to give up this certain amount of assets for them. Or one of the Rogers brothers, I would take both. I've loved both throughout my entire fandom as a baseball fan, especially Tyler and Taylor. The fact that they're, both on the same team is so sick. You got a submariner one and you got a southpaw in the other. You simply cannot go wrong. Absolutely love it. And I was preaching for Taylor Rogers back when he left the Minnesota Twins a couple years ago that I wanted the Mets to go and pick him up. It never happened, but definitely a guy that I wouldn't be opposed to whatsoever. But again, those are soft tossers, and I am in love with velo, and I like that David Stearns clearly has a little bit of a point of emphasis here to make sure that he has guys that are consistently throwing hard and are going to induce not only the swing and miss, but hopefully some soft ground outs at times, like we have seen with a guy like Garcia, and trying to avoid the harder outs, which leads to the home runs, among other things. But, all right, I meant to say this earlier, now let's get into it. Some advanced info, if you will, on Luis Garcia and what he could potentially bring to this Mets bullpen should they go out of their way to acquire him, and they are as follows, according to my man Isaac. He throws his fastball a lot at roughly 58% of the time. His sinker is 51%. The four-seam is 7%. The sinker grades out as an average pitch since it has a below-average movement, but it does top out at 101.7 miles per hour. So something to bear in mind. Yeah, the guy literally touches basically 102 on the gun. So while the pitch itself isn't anything crazy, it's basically league average because of how hard he's throwing it. That is what's led to some of the success. And at the age of 37, to be touching 101 and 102, that's crazy. Shout out to Luis Garcia. Awesome stuff. The four-seam fastball, too, grades out a bit better at a 104 stuff plus, so 4% better than the average pitchers in baseball with that four-seam fastball. He does have its movement, and it isn't that great, but again, a little bit of a flat fastball, but the velocity is what carries it along there with a sinker. He throws that splitter as his main secondary pitch at 19%, and it has a 117 stuff plus, so roughly 20% better than the average pitchers in baseball who also utilize said splitter. But it hasn't quite had the swing and miss result that you would hope for, especially with that kind of pitch. So again, something to bear in mind, which is why we've seen such a high ground ball percentage in the 86th percentile here, but we have not seen the swing and miss rate higher than an 8.4 K per 9 this season. Not that that's terrible by any stretch, but again, I see Isaac's point here why it should be better given what he's throwing and how hard he's throwing. His best pitch, according to Stuff Plus, is actually a sweeper, and we all saw in the highlights that I was showing you guys, that thing has so much break, lots of horizontal movement. Really like that. He throws it just 7% of the time, which is crazy because I'm sure it's just a comfort thing for him, but it is a thing of beauty if he can get that working right. And if the Mets say, hey, David Stearns especially loves his sweeper guys, if they bring in a guy like Garcia, they may ask Garcia to pound the sweeper more to have more success and induce more swing and miss that way. That may in fact happen. It wouldn't shock me at all. The same way Michael Tonkin went from not throwing his fastball to throwing heavy fastball, going from the Mets to the Yankees, because the Yankees figured that would be a recipe for success, and it's worked greatly for them with Tonkin. So those little adjustments are important. That's why having a pitching lab is important, and that's why having a guy at the helm and David Stearns who knows pitching very, very well and how to evaluate it is that imperative for the Mets leading up to the trade deadline, as they have plenty of moves that they're inevitably going to find themselves make. And it also has an insane 52.6 whip percentage on that sweeper. So yeah, safe to say it's a nasty pitch there for Luis Garcia, and I can understand the appeal behind it. definitely an intriguing arm for the Mets to consider here. Again, a guy that pretty much has been sitting around a 3.5 to a 4 ERA in his career. You know what you're getting from him. He is pretty much as advertised, isn't going to walk the entire ballpark, and is going to give you more sure reliability versus what the Mets currently have with some of their relief options. So as long as the Mets can land a Luis Garcia by giving up, it's similar to Ryan Stanek, for example. Like the Mets gave up a top 30 to top 40 prospect yesterday and Rylan Thomas for Ryan Stanek yesterday, which was such a win trade for David Stearns. How could you go wrong there? For the Mariners, they get something back in a salary dump, so it makes sense for both sides. But now you enter Luis Garcia. If you land him, this would absolutely be fantastic. Would I like other guys over Garcia? Of course I would, especially right-handed relievers, but by no means am I going to complain big time if, the Mets get Luis Garcia, it's the end of the world. Farthest thing from it, they get a flamethrower that's more reliable and might just be what Shintaro Fujinami sadly is not amounted to be for the Mets this season. So that is what you guys and gals need to know there on Luis Garcia, the latest Mets trade target. Let me know how you feel about him in the comments, everybody watching live on a replay. Greatly appreciate that. And not in essence, but to really summarize this, folks, we're going to have a lot to talk about in a very short period of time on the trade front, on the news front, with everything happening again in just the next couple hours, 24, 48, 72 hours, all the way leading up to Tuesday. A lot's going to happen, and we're going to cover everything to an absolute T, as we always do, and that's exactly why you guys are amazing for being great supporters here. That's why we're also close to 26,000 subscribers, which I'm humbly, sincerely grateful for. So seriously, thank each and every single one of you so much. And again, thank you guys so much for watching. That is going to about wrap it up for the live show now, folks. Mr. Nobody, how are you? No Name, Jose Lopez, Moya, Elephant, Mike, Jason, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch this one. A combined post-game segment, along with also to just my replay viewers, a segment that you see here on the latest Mets trade target. Let's see what's in store for the team in Queens and David Stearns. Until then, have a fantastic rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. I'll catch you guys for our next post-game segment this